Joining us now, all the way from Seattle, Washington, is the curator of the Gremlins Museum, which boasts the largest collection of original Gremlin movie props in North America. Welcome, Ian Grant. Hello.
Hi there. Thanks for having me on, guys.
How you doing?
Not too bad. It's bright and early here in the morning. I guess a little late for you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not too bad. So, tell us all about your online museum. It is online museum, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not really like a whole public thing yet. At some point, it might kind of turn into that. It really kind of depends on like interest level, I think. But yeah, I started this a few years ago and kind of became my little like kind of pet project after I sold a business. And kind of like just sort of fell into the rat hole of just props and the beauty of them. And I don't know, there's really no feeling to describe when you get one of these guys in the mail and you have it and you can screen match it to like the scene it was in. So it's really kind of like a special thing. And once you kind of start falling down that hole, it's just like there's no coming out. It's brutal. But I love all these guys. I talk to the people who created them, and so it's not just sort of like a money flex kind of thing. It's really like, I really appreciate these things.
Yeah, it's good
Was
fun.
it always Gremlins, or you say props? Was it just, did you just start off with any sort of props, or was it always just it had an interest in Gremlins itself?
I've been interested in Gremlins since I was a little kid. It's kind of, I think everybody has that like kind of nostalgia sort of element. And so for me, like growing up, I remember like a distinct memory of like someday I really want to get one of these, like an actual gremlin. That was sort of like the dream. And I mean, I've had other props before, but I've ended up kind of selling them and just only doing Gremlins at this point because they're kind of pricey. And so, kind of, I enjoy kind of going super niche on things. And that's basically what it did.
So how many have you got in total then, including the Mogwai and the Gremlin?
I'm up to about, I think it's 11 like puppets.
Right.
And I'm always working on getting new ones. I have my list of ones that are like my dream props. And
Okay.
so it's always sort of something's going on in the background, like some of these puppets could take like a year or 2 years to get, to finally convince somebody to sell it.
Right.
So, it's not just like, hey, here's the money and, let's do a deal. It's like, convincing these people to part with their piece. And even just knowing who has some of these puppets, they're all around the world, and just convincing them to sell it is honestly half the battle.
So a lot of these originally in private collections where you get them from.
Yeah, oh yeah, they all are. It's pretty rare that I'll buy something from an auction, but I'll track down these people that have them in their collections, and rumors will get back to me of like, oh, this guy has this piece. I'm like, oh, I've been looking for him forever, and so that's kind of how it works. It's fun. I don't know. It's kind of like a treasure hunt,
Yeah. So what at the moment you just post the pictures on and the stories on Instagram then? Is that where your main kind of route to market, as it were, is?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram is kind of like how I share this stuff. Like, I recognize I'm in kind of like an interesting position. So some prop collectors like to just, like hide away their pieces. Like the director Peter Jackson has probably the biggest collection in the world because he's a billionaire and I can't really compete with that. But he just kind of like stuffed his stuff in a warehouse, and nobody ever sees it again. And I'm kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm like, hey, let's talk about these props, how they were made, how they were used. Because I want to share this with the world. Like, I think it's important, and I think other people kind of appreciate it too.
Do you get many calls from other collectors trying to purchase them back from yourself to add to their collection?
Not too many. I think they kind of realize what I have. Like, I don't know. Like, I have some friends that have like decent prop collections, like Gremlins, and they're like big Gremlin fans. I have a couple of friends in particular, and I don't really bug them. Like, I care. makes me happy that they're in like good homes, that people actually appreciate them. The people who have them in their collections that like don't actually like really care, I'm like, whatever, you know. But yeah, so it's you know, it's a process.
I saw that you I think it was one of them. You have to sort of patch them up when you receive them. They're not in that good condition. Do you have to do a lot of work, you know, on keeping them? Obviously, they're all in boxes now by the looks of things, but do you have to do a lot of work to make them look as good as they did in the film?
Yeah, I mean, they're all made with foam, and so you know, a lot of these pieces were designed just for production. And you know, back when these things were made, like it was no real interest in like having, you know, making them with archival materials and stuff like that. It was like, all right, let's get through the movie and then just whatever after that.
Yeah, sure.
So a lot of these pieces come in just like really rough shape, and so then they're like companies that's all they do is repair stuff like this, and you know, you can get them back in like pretty good shape, all things considering. But it's sort of like you're always trying to slow down time. You know, it's you know, there's never a point where it's like, oh, we're finally safe now. You know.
Do they come? Because I've been researching them. That the amount of cables, there's like 30 cables coming out from the bottom of them. Do you get the cables as well? Or is it literally just a puppet when you get them?
There are different types of puppets. So there's like kind of hand puppets,
Right.
and there's no real mechanics to that other than you know, just shoving your hand in there and moving the mouth around and bouncing them around.
Okay.
There are other ones though that are like full animatronics where they have like, yeah, all those cables coming out, and I prefer to have the original stands and cables if it's possible. I think it's way cooler, like to see them like how they were actually used.
So when they come, if they do come animatronic, are they actually functioning? Do they still work?
A lot of times, if I'm sending them out for restoration, the kind of goal is to you know, keep these things in good shape. And if you start moving around the animatronics and stuff like that, that's just deteriorating the foam. Like some of them can be pretty brittle at this point. So like once they're like in their boxes and stuff, then like that's it. It's done. So yeah, you don't want these guys moving anymore. Like you can get replicas and stuff if you want to do something like that, like, you know, but for the originals, no way.
Yeah. You got kids, have you?
Yeah, I got an 11-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Okay. What are their thoughts on it? Because if I was um young and these were in my house when the film come out, because I did scared the crap out of me when I was younger, I wouldn't even want to go in the room to see them. I mean, now I love them, but it'd be great. But do the kids love them?
My 11-year-old daughter, she's been with me kind of on this whole journey. She goes on like trips with me to go see people's collections sometimes, like, so that's kind of fun in that sense.
Yeah, that's good.
My 2-year-old, it's really kind of humorous because like when he came home, like if you think about like a newborn, a lot of times you're throwing them over your back and kind of burping them and stuff like that. Well, behind where our living room, I had 5 replicas sitting back there. So this kid, like literally since the day he came home, has been seeing Gremlins. And my 2-year-old, his name is Ewan, and he's probably the biggest Gremlins fan that's never seen the movies.
Yeah.
He knows everybody's name. He knows, like, you know, he carries a Gizmo thing around at various points. You know, he has a Gizmo thing on him at basically all times. And so critters, like stuff like that freaks him out. But Gremlins, no way, he freaking loves it.
Just used to him, yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny.
Nice one. And what about your wife? Does she like the collection?
Yeah, she's kind of like played along a bit. Like I think in the beginning, like she's seeing, you know, like, all right, we're spending a lot of money here, buddy. But that being said, like I think she appreciates it. Like she kind of like throws hints every once in a while, like somebody come over and then she'll start like telling people, oh, this is how this puppet was used, and you know, and so like I'll catch her kind of like, I think she appreciates it more than she lets on, you know.
At least you allow them in your office, I guess it is. They're not being sort of put up in the loft or in the toilet or something.
They kind of hang out in my office now. Like they, you know, in the last like place we were in, they kind of got spread out because it was a little bit smaller house. But here I can kind of contain it. So I think that's why she doesn't get too mad about it. She doesn't
Nice.
want gremlins hanging out in her pretty ass.
No.
So do you go to a lot of these conventions showing off your collection, or is it more sort of a personal collection and online?
It's mostly just online because I don't like moving these guys around. That's kind of like the only time I'm really happy is when these things are inside their cases. Nobody can touch them. Like they're not moving around. Like it's kind of like, you know, like you're moving around like fragile, like I don't know. It's hard to find an analogy for it, but it's when you're moving them around, these things are very fragile, and like, you know, you start seeing pieces of foam falling off, and you know, like it's kind of like my worst nightmare. So once they're in cases, that's when I'm happy. So yeah.
What's your prized possession? What's your favorite replica or model or original that you've got currently?
I can show you. Let me see if I can flip this guy around here. Hold on.
I see an empty case.
Yeah, there's let's see. Oh, here we go.
He's escaped, yeah.
I'll tell you. All right. Here, we'll stay horizontal here. This is my favorite right now. This is a animatronic Mohawk Mogwai. And you know, you can see his whole kind of apparatus here. That's how they control him. And each one of those, you know, it could be moving an ear and an eye or a mouth or something like that. So he's real special to me. He's about literally best it gets.
That's Gremlins 2, isn't it? That one.
Correct. Yeah. I mostly have Gremlins 2 stuff. There's
cool.
less than 10 puppets for Gremlins 1 in the world left.
Really?
Nothing left on that.
Wow.
So this is like kind of a larger Gizmo here.
That
he I call him kind of like a hero Gizmo because he's a full animatronic, so you can kind of see like wires and stuff going down in there. So anytime in Gremlins 2 you saw like a close up of Gizmo, it was this guy right here, including like the end when he shoots kind of the arrow at the spider gremlin. You know, he has the full like Rambo headgear there and everything. So
their mouths come off, don't they? Or to make different expressions. Is that on all of
So when Gremlins 2 was made, those small guys, there's only so much they could like servos and stuff they could shove in his face. So like you can see in the smaller guys, it's you know, there's only so much they could have done back in 1990 there. So with this guy, you know, they can make him, you know, he was the true actor in a sense because he could, you know, move his mouth, his eyes could, you know, show like true emotions and stuff. And so this guy's real special. There's only one of him made. So
it does look cool, actually. It looks so real, doesn't it? It's like even now, how long ago the film was made, and me being 42, it still looks like it's even it was the cute one.
Don't you?
It's creepy.
He's in good shape. I mean, he had to go in for restoration. Like he shipped from London, and then he came here, and then he actually had a lot of like damage on his hands, and so I had to ship him back to New York in a giant crate. And they were able to get him like in a little bit better expression, and he's back in good shape again. So it was a little nerve-wracking for a minute, but I'm pretty happy the way he turned out. So and you can actually see I have this here too. This is what's actually inside, like all the small Mogwais. This is like kind of what the furniture looks like.
Jeez.
In all of them, it's the same kind of thing. And you can see kind of you know, there's the individual kind of joints like there would be in, you know, a hand, you know. So I can show these guys here too while I'm here. This is a kind of a Lenny from Gremlins 2. It's huge screen used. It's kind of like a walking one, so his head comes off, and so a puppeteer could kind of shove his hand in there and make him walk, and it's kind of cool. Neat little piece. Animatronic Daffy here.
Oh god, I remember him.
I remember that face.
Yeah,
he's a cool guy.
The eyes spin round in the film. He was kind of
so he's a self-contained one. So he basically somebody would be controlling him from a like a kind of RC remote, And so whenever like Daffy got picked up and needed to kind of flail around a little bit, it was this puppet here.
Right.
He's in pretty good shape, all in all. He got kind of restored a couple times actually, but yeah, pretty happy with him.
Because
And
that's the Mogwai, isn't it? That's not because it looks like a cross between the both. Obviously, before because Mogwai,
yeah, he's a Mogwai. Yeah, he's
yeah,
before he turned into kind of a gremlin there.
yeah, you can see the gremlin in that one, can't you?
Yeah, there's a George prototype. So he wasn't screen used or anything, but he's kind of cool because you can kind of see his controls here a little bit.
Yeah.
That moves his arms and his legs. So he wasn't used in the movie or anything, but he's that's basically what George looked like. They didn't really
Yeah.
change him all that much. So there's a replica Gizmo from Gremlins 1. This is about as good as it gets. All the Gizmos that are left now are just absolute trash.
Yeah.
So it's having one of these guys around is about as good as it gets for a we can spin around over here. So this is a Gremlins 1 guy here. So there's less than 10 of these guys in the world. I'm a little biased, but I think he's the best one left.
Yeah. He's from the bar scene, isn't he? Did I see that on your Instagram? He was he was sat on the bar, wasn't he?
Yeah, so he's what's called a butt puppet. So what they do is use about a like 3/4 size there, and so you kind of have your hand up from the bottom, and then you'd be like moving his mouth around, and he was used in the bar and then the movie theater. So I mean that's as good as it gets in my opinion. He's pretty fantastic. So sorry, a little bit of glare there, but what's kind of funny with him is I don't know how well you can see it here, but on his lower jaw there, you can actually see what I think they're cigarette burns. And so like a lot of times, these guys were doing, hours in the movie theater and stuff like that, and this is the 80s, right? So, they're sitting out there smoking and stuff. And so, probably you're pissed off at waving around 3 gremlins. Like you'd have one on each arm and then one on your like a helmet. And, smoking your cigarette and breaks and stuff, and then you putting out your cigarette on the gremlin. That's kind of funny.
He is scary. Yeah. That's a gremlin to me. That is like just brings back nightmares from an 8-year-old boy.
Yeah, I got really lucky on him. I just he sort of fell into my lap, which I think at the time I didn't necessarily appreciate. He was the first one I ever got, and he just sort of fell into my lap, and I had him professionally restored because his head fell off, and but he's in great shape now, and I love him. He's great.
Yeah, he is cool. Has he got a name?
Not really. I don't know. I forgot. I jokingly had a name for him for a little while, but not really anymore.
Yeah.
But I'll pan down over here. This is a vegetable gremlin. He's kind of the hero of vegetable gremlin.
Yeah.
From Gremlins 2. He's my treasure. I love him. He's fantastic. You can really kind of appreciate just like the the artistry that went into these things. It's just nuts. Somebody had to sculpt this and make it so his eyes could move and move his mouth, and it's pretty nuts. They're very impressive, I think.
Yeah, that is cool.
And then Greta's right next to him.
Oh yeah.
She's fun. She's this guy, he's kind of like a hand puppet. So it's the same kind of idea as the Gremlins 1 guy, where the puppeteer would have his hands up there, and then you could move his arms around, and then eyes would move and stuff like that. She's what's called a throw around puppet. So if she needs to kind of cling to an actor or something like that, that was sort of her role for this type of puppet anyway.
I do remember she clung to someone's leg in the movie, didn't she? I do remember that.
Yeah, that's this puppet right here. Yep.
Right. That's the exact one, right? Yeah, that's incredible.
Yep, that's the exact puppet. And so they made one of these for basically all the characters. And so a lot of times they're in the best condition, because they weren't really subjected to, as rigorous sort of filming conditions and stuff like that. But she's in pretty good shape. She's going to go in for restoration this year, I think. She needs a little bit of work, but that's her. And then pan over, you've got George right here.
Yeah, I remember
He's
that.
going to be moving down into that case. He's having a new stand built for him this
Okay.
week. And he's also a throw around puppet, just like Greta. So I don't think he was actually used in the movie, but he's the best kind of. I think he's the only full body George that's left. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then
It's amazing.
over here, this is it's a little glaring here. I got big windows, but this is a generic Matt Rose style gremlin, and he's the one that became the Phantom later on.
Right.
So he's the one that got like acid thrown in his face in Gremlins 2.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was used in a bunch of different scenes too. Like I've been able to kind of screen match him and stuff. He has kind of the same controllers as Vegetable Gremlin there. But we got another, the other style Gremlins, a Steve Wang one, and he's coming in hopefully next month. So I'll have a brown Steve Wang one kind of displayed next to him here. So that'll be kind of fun.
That's cool.
And so those are, what's that?
It's an impressive collection.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's kind of my puppets, and then I have kind of some other like kind of interesting stuff, like kind of in display cases. Like
Okay.
this is a like a Japanese overdub session script, and so this is this lady, it's personal script. She played Kate in the first Gremlins, and it has all her like kind of personal notes and stuff in there, you know, from when they were overdubbing into Japanese, which I think is kind of fun. Like I like goofy stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is Dick Miller's personal script from the first Gremlins, and you know, Mr. Futterman. It has all his notes and stuff in it, which is kind of cool. Like he actually wrote out some new dialogue for a scene that it ultimately became a deleted scene, but he kind of like wrote out all the notes and everything for her, which is I don't know, I think it's kind of a cool little like relic, you know.
Yeah, that's good.
And then the last kind of one here is it's a Daniel Clamp book from Gremlins 2, which I think is super fun. I love John Glover. I sent him a card to sign, and he sent me over the book cover. So for me, that was like pretty special.
Yeah, a little bit of effort from him. Yes, that's good.
Yeah, so it's kind of my special little stuff. I don't know, like I been collecting this stuff for a little while, and you know, trying to find fun ways to display all of it.
Yeah, that's good. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks.
So what is your favorite 80s film, by the way?
Favorite 80s film? I don't know. I mean, I've seen Gremlins probably the most out of it. Growing up, I was really into Aliens as well.
Right.
I remember there was a point when I was like a little kid, and I was like on sort of like the early version of the internet, and I convinced some guy on like a message board to make me a VHS copy of the Alias Special Edition, which was only on Laserdisc at the time.
Wow!
And so like seeing those like special those deleted scenes was like life changing for me. Yeah. I think those Gremlins or Aliens probably my big ones.
Back then, yeah, that would be something else, wouldn't it? Seeing all the stuff that Laserdisc had to offer on VHS, because you just don't see it, or you wouldn't seen it back then. So I can see how the seed was planted for sure.
People are pretty spoiled nowadays, where you have kind of like easy access to those scenes, like the deleted stuff. Back then, like, you know, it was sort of like whatever magazines were nice enough to give you, or you know, like when Laserdisc came out, that was kind of the start of it. So it was a big freaking deal when I saw that. It was like life changing.
Nice.
So have you going back to the original Gremlins? Obviously, a lot of that was filmed, as a Back to the Future fan myself, around the Clock Tower Square. Have you visited that as part of because a lot of that was actually filmed at Universal Studios. Have you visited that sort of the area of the filming?
I was actually down in LA like a few weeks ago, and I was trying to get in for like one of those tours, but I missed it. So I was a little sad about that, but I don't know. Truthfully, like the stuff that interests me the most is like the making of like the puppets and stuff like that. And so I have like a few guys that I talk with, from both movies that like worked on making the puppets, and so for, like those guys, that's kind of what's like the thing that interests me the most. Not really like kind of like the actors or like shooting location quite as much. So I think everybody kind of has their interests. Like I have friends that are into like the merchandise. I have friends that are into like the actors. So for me, that's kind of what it is. It's like kind of how did you use these puppets? How did you make them? Stuff like that.
Are you crafty or like in terms of what's like in your work life? Is it do you do something similar when it comes to like puppetry? What do you do for a living?
So I sold a business like a few years back, and so I'm just kind of like, I mean, this is kind of what I do right now.
Oh wow,
living the dream.
So I've been taking some. I'm kind of like child chauffeur right now is sort of my job. I was a photographer kind of before that, and so I still kind of do some shoots here and there. I run sort of a headshot business where I take sort of like, I don't know if you guys have LinkedIn over there, but it's yeah, so like kind of headshots like for stuff like that. And so it's I have it kind of automated, so it's really easy to do, and so I still kind of keep that up. But for the next year or two, this has kind of like been my like full-time thing is researching gremlin crap.
Nice.
that's incredible.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in this like unique position where it's like I think a lot of people, like if you had the opportunity, like a lot of people wouldn't necessarily know what to do, like or and for me it's like, no, I know exactly what I would do. I'd research gremlin stuff. And so that's kind of what I do. Yeah.
Have you met is it Chris Wallace and Rick Baker, the two guys that they designed them, didn't they? Have you met those two guys?
I've talked with Chris a little bit. Rick he sort of pops into my Instagram every once in a while.
Oh, that's cool.
But I mean, they were kind of like the heads of their own shops, and so as far as who actually like made the puppets, like like for instance, like George was made by Jim McPherson, and so if I have a question about George, or he actually sculpted Mogwai's face too. And so I have questions about that, I can go right to him. Like Rick wouldn't necessarily know like individual questions maybe, but you can go to the individual artists and they're still around. They're, a lot of them are subscribed to my Instagram, and
That's cool.
yeah, some of them are pretty like just open, like they're happy to discuss this stuff with you. It's really pretty amazing.
Excellent.
They're probably glad their work is still sort of as special today as it was during the filming, and
being preserved and being immortalized, as it were.
Yeah, I mean for any of us, I think that if you made something and then 30, 40 years later somebody still cares, I think you're doing something right. That's the way I see it anyway.
Definitely.
If anyone remembers something you did that long ago, I mean, like, you're winning, man. So
yeah. Excellent. Right. Well, I think we're running out of time, aren't we?
Yeah, because I don't pay for Zoom.
Right on, guys.
No, yeah, Ian, it's been a pleasure. It's been really interesting stuff I didn't even know I didn't know about these things. So yeah, thanks for having the time taking the time to speak to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
That's great. Thanks a lot. And we're doing we recorded our Gremlins one, which will be I'll send you the link to it and you can have a listen, see what you think.
Cool. Excited to hear.
Cool. Okay. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Take care.
Take care.
Cheers.
See you.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Okay.